Ngalakin Khadijan Nyunga Boja.
Testing.
What is our society and the cost of, you lose a little bit of money here for a while, but overall, Conrad, thank you. Thank you again.
I'm going to go and catch up with Sally before.
Yeah, she's heading off. Yes, very soon. Thanks. Take care.
I don't know. I should use that thing. I think I've got
You can
nothing
use
on,
that?
I've got nothing on here that I want to do other than.
Okay.
And we can plug the camera straight in.
Yeah, let's plug in.
And we're on.
Yeah, start recording.
Did you upload the recording, or you just?
I do.
Recording in progress.
All right.
Okay, folks, let's start.
Okay, so this is the info session portion where I'm playing the role of the project partner and you're asking questions. And there's been a whole lot of questions on the discussion group, which I've tried to go through. But let me start by just talking through the concept of those questions. It is super important when you ask a question that you give it some kind of technical question number, so we're not what we're referring to. Several people try and ask a question and the question becomes, here's question 1, comma, another question, and it's still technical question 1. And actually they're 3 separate questions. I need to understand how to answer that question, okay? And a question needs to be defined by why are you asking it? Right? So, and that's the background and the supporting material. So please make sure that you're telling me the background material that came up with your group that went, oh, because of these issues, we don't have an answer to this question. Right? So it's very important that we get that. And probably the most important is there should be no frivolous questions on that thing. All right? So, what colour should I make it? Now, no one's asked me that question. Okay, but there should be no frivolous questions. So I'm playing the role of the project partner, which equivalently would be the client. And it would undermine your position to ask a question of the client that the client believed that you as the engineer should be answering. So be very prudent with the questions that you ask and make sure it's a question that's representative of the team, okay? So I just thought of this random question, I'm going to fire it out because that question then reflects on the whole team. What have you been doing as a team? Why haven't you discussed this as a team? Why are you flying this to the project partner without internally discussing it and framing that question and providing the supporting information? Because we're here to get you the information, but we're not here to kind of be buried under a million questions that really you should be addressing. So having prefaced this session by that, I'm happy to take some questions. I've addressed most of those questions and some of them are, the response was, I'm unable to answer this question because there is no background information. So right now I'm happy to field questions so long as you're happy for me to fire back and say, please justify that question, please explain your background information that caused that question to arise. So go for it. Anybody? Because there are lots on the forum. And the other thing is on the forum, if I answer a question, I'm not answering it separately. So if the same question gets asked by someone else, I get a little annoyed. That means you haven't read the available information. That is, a whole lot of other people ask questions, so you should be trolling through everyone else's questions, looking at their questions, oh, that's been addressed. I shouldn't be asking the same kind of question because it says you're not putting in the effort to kind of review the questions that have already been asked. So, questions without now intimidating you too much. Oh, shut you down. Now you're scared. I'm not walking through slides. Go for it. Question. Hang on. Let me start just for a moment. How about starting with your name? So just so we know. Hi, Tyler. All right. Go for it.
So I've done a little bit of research on these cards. There's some smart writers that use RFID technology.
Okay.
Looked onto eBay for RFID readers, which get right into computers to read information. But I was considering getting one of those, but I'm scared that these may be encrypted or not, and I might not be able to extract data. So,
You tried that? What generation phone are you up to?
I've got the latest.
Your latest, right. Does it have an NFC reader? Can you go ding and tap and pay? You do any of that stuff? No, I mean, can you use your phone and go beep and pay a bill somewhere? Okay. How's it doing that? Yeah, you're an EE. Your job to look at technology and understand the technology. Okay, there's some super engineering technology in here for you to use. There's a near-field card reader. It's not using Bluetooth when you're paying your bills, right? It's not using Wi-Fi, right? It's using a near-field card reader. That's why you have to be real close. Have you put your student card up to it? I have. Did you install the software? What software? Google. Dear Mr. Google, I was wondering if my phone can read my student card. Okay, your job's engineers. You've got all the technology in the world available to you. Be smart, okay? Use every bit of technology you can get your hands on, and you've got a ton in your phone. Okay? So, yeah, I just downloaded that, swiped my card, went, there it is, there's all my information. Sat down for a while, tried to decode my stuff. No, look at that. Okay, so don't, it's a good question. It's a bad question because it also says, I don't want to pick on you, but, it's a good question, right? We need this question. But your job's to investigate, right? I'm the project partner. As far as you know, I'm from marketing. Okay, and marketing wants a swing. You saw my photo last week, the little image of the swing. I just want a swing. It needs to go back and forward, and I need to be able to sit on it. Please give it to me. Don't ask me what kind of protocols does it need. It's a swing. All right, what kind? How wide should the rope be? It's a swing. So you figure it out. You're the engineers. So questions around what kind of protocols should I use? How long's a piece of string? It's completely up to you. You have to your team. When I say your team have to work like you're a startup company. The 6 of you, typically there's 6. You've just formed this little startup company. You are going to wipe every other startup company out by producing this technology. Your technology is going to be better than anyone else. It's going to have more features. It's going to be quicker to market. It's going to be at the right price point. So questions about how much should it cost, right? So someone asked me how much should it cost, and I asked how many are you going to sell? How much are these? How much does this cost? If I get the workshop to cut me a piece of metal, it'll probably cost $500. But that's what this phone costs. They give me a piece of metal that's got a bit of a cut in it, and now I can buy a phone. Which one's got more technology in it? Well, they make me one piece of metal that's got a cut in it, but they sell millions of these. So the power of buying stuff in volume can substantially drop the cost. The first one of these would have cost, airbags, the accelerometers that go in the cars. The first accelerometers were, has it dropped off, has it? The first accelerometers that were produced were hundreds of dollars. Now they're, like cents, probably in the order of 50 cents for an accelerometer. Goes in your airbag. You're now doing, pressure sensors goes in tyres. So, automotive industry is a fantastic market because there's volume. You can drop the price on anything. So how much does something cost? Don't know. How many are you going to sell? More questions?
Hey.
What's your name?
Karan.
Karan. Cheers.
Can
Oh, sorry?
you hold on for a second? The Zoom just crashed.
Yeah, all right. Give me. And yeah, try and remind me to repeat the questions too. I'm always forgetting to repeat the questions and then people can't hear on Zoom. So I'll try and do a better job at repeating questions. All right, we're back.
Should be okay.
Okay, Grant, go for it.
We were looking for a lot of different PQs and
So a bit louder?
yep. We were going through several PQs.
Yes.
Technical
Yeah.
on wired ECAUs and wireless ECAUs.
Yep.
Now, considering both would have different design aspects to them, as a client, which one would you rather prefer? Would you prefer
So, okay, the requirement is it needs to work on all different kinds of equipment. Okay, as a client, I don't care. Okay, just needs to work. Okay, but if I've got a rotating piece of equipment with, and a drill press is a good example, right? With some kind of kill power bit at the back, right, and a swipe thing perhaps at the front, and you're running wires from front to back, your cable management better be damn good, because that cable can never come off. It can never interfere with any part of the rotating equipment. So then you'll end up coming up with a kind of a custom harness for pretty much every piece of equipment. From a business model, I go for it, but from a business model, I think that's a dangerous product to put out there. Again, you think of it like a startup company. Yet company A might produce a wired version, and there are lots of advantages for that wired version. Equally well, in my ideal world, there's no connection. It's wireless of some kind. That's in my ideal world. But my job as the customer is I want the widget, and you have to treat me a little bit like an idiot that I actually don't know what I want. It's again that swing. Okay, so I want the swing, but I'm constrained by how I think things work, right? So don't necessarily treat me like an engineer. I'm just the client who's come up with this great product that I want, and I'm willing to pay for it. I want to roll it out through my university. Your job is to come up with different variants, different concepts that might meet that goal. Is that right? Go on, what's your name? Sorry. Just tell me. Aidan, go on.
So on that same point, in terms of like user experience and user interface and stuff like that, should we be coming to you to see what you prefer in terms of like, if there's like an app or a system that you have to use?
So, yep. All right, so I'll try and do this repeat. So the question is around, do you want to come and ask me about, I suppose, the specific custom aspects of the final product? And the answer is kind of no. I don't want to tailor your solution. The requirements kind of lay that out. If I've got the requirements wrong, that's part of the reason for those technical queries. So you should be probing and going, is it hardwired? Is it Wi-Fi? Okay, and as a product, you need to look at what the issues are in both of those. And as a team, you'd need to decide which one as a product might we think is the better one, right? You know, if you're producing a widget, a box to sell to a market, you might do some market research, but you can't go running around to everyone and asking, would you buy this, would you buy this, would you buy this? At some point, you have to know this is the right product for the market. It's going to win. If we produce this, you know, we think this is the best product for the market. So try and bring that mindset.
Recording in progress.
Thank you, because I'd forgotten. All right. Sweet, thanks. Aidan? Other questions?
Yes.
What was your name?
My name is Venza.
Venza? Venza?
Yeah, my question is, in the brief presentation, offline access,
Yes?
how large is the database? How many people are allowed to access the machine?
All of them.
All of them? So, and have identity database?
So, okay, let me make sure I'm hearing the question right. How many people can access the one piece of equipment?
Yeah.
Have one piece of equipment?
Yeah, offline.
How many people can access this door? You know, with their swipe card? Yeah, technically. So, you know, I mean, if you have been granted access to this room, you should be allowed to access this room. If you've been granted access to use the coffee machine, right, then you should be allowed to use the coffee machine. If we then grant everyone on campus, I can't see a point of actually having a swipe. You know, if every single person on campus needed to, you know, would have free access, we just wouldn't put a swipe card access on it. But, you know, you should be allowed a large number of people. So, I don't know, I'm going to guess, what are the current numbers? There's like 12 to 15,000 students on campus. Staff and academics, there's probably another 10,000. I don't know what the numbers are. Students are 22 these days. Okay, and ACADs are probably 10 plus 15, I don't know. No, so ACADs and staff.
Oh, total.
Yeah, total. So, okay, I'm going to say maybe there's 1/3 of staff and 2/3 of students at the university, just as a ballpark number. I might say I want all staff to access this, but no students. Or, you know, like the eZone rooms for booking. I might have all students can access this and no staff should be able to use this. Okay, so the database could be quite large on any particular piece of equipment.
I mean, in the offline, no network model.
I don't care. I'm the client. What do you mean offline and online? I just want it to work. So make it work. Okay. So, you know, don't talk to me about, oh, but offline or online, how many do you want? It wasn't spec'd as a requirement. So, you know, your job, your team's job, is to identify what the issue is and try and solve it. Okay. Hopefully I'm go question. Try and start with your name. I'm trying to make it a little bit more.
I'm
Z. Thanks, Z.
If there is any visitor coming to the university and he wants, is there any process to make him authorized?
That one I can actually answer that question. A visitor that comes to this university for more than a period of about 2 weeks can get a visitor's card, and it is identical to a staff or student card. They would be added to the database just like any staff or student. They would be issued a number, and that number would get them access to this room if they were allocated to this room, or to their office, or to the piece of equipment if they needed to be added to it. So, but it would be treated in no different way than a staff or student person. So, right.
My name is Xie.
Sure, thanks.
How many the authority level we should design?
Sorry, one more time.
How many the level we should design, such as some room just student can entry, some room just staff, some room just professor.
How many rooms should we?
Yeah, just authority level.
Authority levels, I see. So the question is, how many authority levels should we have for a piece of equipment? As far as I'm concerned, not thinking more about it, the function of the equipment is to use the equipment or not use the equipment. That was the function of the system. So the system doesn't know anything about authority levels. I just want to use this equipment or not. If I'm authorised to use this equipment, I should be allowed to use this equipment. And so authorisation levels implies that, you know, the function should be different somehow from perhaps a staff to a student. We haven't specified that. So
what about adding someone access?
okay, Delucia is reinterpreting the question, so make sure we're hearing it right. So Delucia's question is around, I interpret it to be who can add people to this database, and that is an administrative issue, and that's something beyond what you're doing. So you are not in control of the database that says this person is allowed to use this equipment. For example, that database may be managed by our safety team. So only if they have authorised that person, and it's an example only, but only if they have authorised that person to use the equipment because they've completed some form of safety induction, would they log in some kind of administrative role to some database and add that person to a database. But it's no different than swiping into a room, for example. Someone has access and someone does not have access. And in the database it would simply say, this person can use this equipment. That's really all it's saying. One at a time, I'll come back. Name and question.
My name is
Right.
Brian. And just regarding the database we were talking about, is that something that we expect us as a team to develop a solution for, or is that something we can make an assumption that the university already has some sort of cloud service or whatever it is that holds all that information?
So you need to think about the concept of that database, but we have Craig Williams. Do we have a date for Craig yet? 15th. On the 15th of, is that next week? Next week we have Craig Williams coming by, who is a very senior person in the IT group and pretty much Grand Master of knowing everything about databases and interfacing to them at this university. So if it exists and how it exists and how it works, they're questions for him next week. So the existence of that system you may want to presume is there. You have no control over. And again, thinking of yourselves as we're a private company, we're making this thing to go into this particular market. You might decide, hey, I'm going to sell this technology to Woodside or BHP, not just UWA. You would need to work in with any of their database systems, right? But the fundamental bits that go into allowing this to work in terms of the functional system you're in control of, but you need to have some appreciation and ability to work with other databases. And there's a finite number of database formats in the world, so pretty much once you understand the kinds of critical information that you need to pass from one to the other, there's only a certain number of fields that you might want to do. I've kind of specified what kind of information you might want to exchange. So, all right, so Ryan, I'll come back because we had a second question here. Go.
So I just want to follow up the previous question. So the authorization process is not in our concern, right?
So the database is not your concern. You cannot decide if this swipe card is valid if you don't have some kind of knowledge of is this swipe card allowed to use this piece of equipment. So there is. You need to be aware of that level of information being provided to you.
So basically, when we're designing the system, we will already be provided like which cards are authorized and which are not, and our system will only need to read that information and change the state.
Sorry, I fell asleep. What was the question? So I have about a 10-second attention span. Frame the question, because it came out as a statement. It needs to be something I can put a question mark at the end of, and then I can address it.
Can you give me some time?
Yeah, sure. Ryan. Was it? So you will get more information next week once Craig Williams gets here. I don't want to preempt anything Craig's going to say, because then you'll have, hang on, Adrian said this. No, Craig's the guru. Let's listen to everything he's got to say and then take that on board. Otherwise, all right. So, and then you had part 2 or part 3. Oh, thank you for pointing out my questions online. Excellent. Thank you.
It was a non-technical question. I basically said I'd answer it on that.
Okay. I love it. All right. Okay. Still more time? Need a bit more time? Just think about it, because it's very important. How you frame a question is super important, right? Because you know, being able to stop and think about how your question is. Go for it. Name and then.
John Hitchens.
John.
When the system is operating offline, will we need to create a local copy of the database so any potential user can access the machinery or be able to decide that internally, or just track some local users from previous history or something like that?
So how that's done? Blah. I want this thing to work independent of any network, up or down. Okay, that's all I'm saying, right? I simply identified as part of the requirements. I think we all know that the internet can be a bit flaky around town, right? So, I don't want my $1 million piece of equipment not to be usable because the internet went down in this section of the university. So, I need to be able to access the equipment. Now, Ryan? Sure. All engineering assumptions, like anything else, so long as you clearly state them and they are not completely off the wall, then making an engineering assumption in order to move to the next phase sounds completely reasonable. But like everything else, it needs to be strongly justified. So if your assumption is that the UWA network never goes down in a period of 6 months, I'll laugh at you. So, question, go for it. Name and.
My name is Tao.
Tao.
So I would like to ask, as you said, it's a project grade. The scope of this project will be off the electrical equipment. But I would like to ask, is it possible to get the asset register from you? Because it's very important for us to know a clear image of what specific equipment we have.
It's
very important for determining the size.
Doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. What you're asking for, I think you're asking for a list of every equipment on the campus, does not exist. No. This mouse, this monitor, this keyboard. Okay, there's no database for this keyboard. There's no database for this mouse. There's no database for this stand here. This telephone, this lead that connects into the telephone, doesn't exist. Okay, so there is no single database for stuff, right? So there are databases available for high-end, expensive equipment, okay, which is a very small subset of equipment. So providing you that database, which really we can't do, wouldn't be helpful because, okay, it doesn't help you protecting this computer here, which is almost certainly not on an asset database. So, there's a lot of stuff that's not on a central database in terms of that particular asset. Okay? So, Craig will come and talk more next week about the exact level of information that we have. Okay? So, we talked about assumptions before. You have to be able to move your project ahead, right? Making reasonable engineering assumptions, right? But be warned, if you make assumptions for things that I think you should have investigated that assumption is completely unreasonable. There should have been some deeper study or some deeper probing, and that probing didn't happen, then the product that you're creating may be just fictional, and maybe, I'm not going to buy that product. I'm not going to buy that product is the same as that report's not very good, and that report's not very good translates into how it's assessed. Okay, so your job is to try and come up with a product that is a reasonable product that would make it into this market, provide some benefit, and then finish and make a whole lot of money and be entrepreneurs and make millions of dollars and come back and go, ha, look, Adrian. Yeah. Okay. I'm still Adrian. So can you make an assumption that the solution that we make would be only equivalent to, let's say, a budget cost of like $500 or $1,000, because it wouldn't be reasonable to do on the same map or screen. So you need to make your assumptions, and I'm not going to make them for you. So you decide not to do it on a mouse, right? Okay. But for example, if you decide you're only going to do it on particular kinds of equipment that has this kind of connector, and that's my assumption. My box is only going to work on equipment with this kind of connector, and that makes my job so super easy. Yeah, our team's now able to design this really fantastically. That's great. Actually, only 1% of the equipment that we're really interested at the university has that kind of connector. Therefore, your product's not very good. I'm not going to buy it. Doesn't address the need. So long as it's addressing the core need. So if you think I need to track this mouse, right, you're kind of misunderstanding that brief, right? So you've got to be looking at the kinds of things that we might want to understand who's using them, why, where they might be, and then trying to come up with a product that addresses that. Yep. So, yeah. But like anything, assumptions are always tricky.
Adrian, there's a question.
Sorry, let me go online. So, last one. Moved from service when needed. Does this mean stopping using the system when maintaining, or the system can be used normally if removing a component from it? I'm going to take allowing it to be removed when needed. So yeah, if a piece of equipment is removed from service, it's not available for use. Therefore, the system does not need to be used during that period. So I think I put that one in as a requirement, because that's a requirement that we put in, was where a piece of equipment might need to undergo some kind of maintenance, and a part is taken out, and as part of that the equipment is really not usable, but someone may come along and try to use it. So I can't think of a good example, but maybe there's a drill press, we need to replace the belt, and so we come along, we replace the belt. Now, normally when a piece of equipment is taken out of service because it's undergoing some kind of maintenance, a sign is placed on it that might say out of service or something. So the idea of that is just, having the ability to say, if someone comes in and swipes in while this equipment is deemed to be out of service, they shouldn't be allowed to swipe and have the equipment turn on. That's really the essence of that question. So hopefully I've addressed that. All right, and so we had another central question here. Ricky, thanks. Again, I'm how do I want to do this? I don't want to build this for you. Okay, it's not my job to build it for you. So if you keep coming back, is it okay if it's red? Can I make it green? Can it be as big as a bread box? Can I make it as small as a cigarette pack? Can I? I don't want to do that, right? So if you've got to make certain assumptions, then you make them. Where you've got a critical technical query that needs to be addressed because this is a really important thing. Absolutely, let's address it. But you've got to make yeah. If you make gravity 9.8 or 9.9, 9.81, it's your choice, right? It doesn't really matter to me. But if you're making an assumption that goes against the spirit of those requirements, then that's the issue. So I don't think you're talking about that case, but yeah. All right.
So part of the issue with these technical queries is you're supposed to develop your requirements from what you get from technical queries. So think of it in that way as well, because as you have to put together 20 technical, 20 let's say, core requirements, and we've only laid out a few to that bridge. So you need to extract from Adrian the core requirements. So think of it in that way as well when you ask me these questions.
Remember, I'm a stupid client. Okay. Any questions, guys? All right. No. Alvy. No, I couldn't see that happening. So so under normal situations, you come along and want to use a piece of equipment that's not there, you need to see the owner of the equipment. The owner of the equipment should be able to tell you where the equipment is if they deem to. But the problem then is oh, you found the equipment's over there. Oh, great, I'm just going to borrow that and I'm going to take it over to this lab here. And someone found it when it was in there and they take it and they move it over here. So the owner of the equipment should really understand where the equipment is. If you go somewhere the equipment should be and it's not there, pretty much every room has a lab manager's name on it. And then there's normally a contact number. You'd contact the lab manager and say, there was an oscilloscope here last week. I need it for my project, it's not here at the moment. And they may go, it's currently in G22. You're welcome to go and use it there, but just don't take it out of there. Oh, okay. And you trundle off there and use the equipment there. But currently, what would happen is you would contact the lab manager and they'd go, what? Where's the equipment? It should be in the lab. I don't know where it is. Right? And that's part of the issue, that equipment does go walking because someone took it and shouldn't have taken it, and no one can find out where it's ended up. So if the owner of the equipment can check, oh, it looks like it's in this building here, I didn't realise it was missing, let me go and chase it down, then the owner of the equipment can get that. But normally, as a user, you wouldn't have access to that database. It's like database of the door. Oh, sorry, go for it. So, two-part question. If the equipment is not available, your only recourse would be to contact the lab manager, who's in charge of the equipment and ask, you know, where's the equipment, I need to access it.
Also, just to add to that,
It's a three-part question. This is it.
so what if the equipment is borrowed, it's taken off campus, and it's
Off campus.
and it's during hours where the lab manager isn't contacted.
Yeah, yeah.
So in those cases, who would the user contact?
The user would contact the person on the door, okay, and you're saying they're not available? Okay, at which point you would contact 2222 security and say, a piece of equipment's been stolen from the university, can you please call the police? I can tell you what the equipment looks like, and I'm an authorised user of it, and they'll go, oh yeah, I can see you're an authorised user of this equipment, that's the one, it's been stolen. Hang on, I'll call the cops right now because it's gone off campus. Okay? So, equipment doesn't go off campus, goes off campus, we call cops. Right?
Thank you.
Right, question? Sir.
Hi, I'm Alex. Most databases, I'm assuming the EWA database, will have some form of firewall, antivirus protection, that kind of stuff. Would each of the, considering each of the individual card readers and ECAUs would have a local log for when the Wi-Fi goes down, would each of those need that security, and would that be required? Would that be provided by EWA, or would that need to be provided by us?
So it's your product. So as far as, if, I put my banking details into here. I don't know how it stores the information. No idea. No idea at all. I bought my phone. I know it's got information in it, and it handles my private information. But I so long as it, I click the terms and conditions, and I sometimes read them, and it generally says they're bound by some kind of laws, right? So long as you're not violating laws in the way that you're keeping data, then as a customer, I don't care. Your point of talking to the university is through that database that Craig will talk to next week. But I suppose if I could, I'm not sure where the question's going, but I suppose if I could crack open the front and there's an SD card there, and I pull out the SD card and plug it into my computer, and it has a CSV text-based file of every student number, that's ever used this in date logs and whatever, then perhaps there's a security issue there. Okay, so, and if you're crazy enough to do that, then maybe it's not. But I don't want to. My job as a client is not to drill down. I don't know anything about SD cards. I'm dumb. I'm from marketing, right? So I don't know any of that. You just got to, yeah. And I can't see why you wouldn't do something a little bit clever, at least internally. Question. Kieran.
When we handed over the report in the semester, what level does the design need to be at that point? Does it need to be at a point where it goes to construction, or I'm just trying to work out what depth would it take the design process?
Delicia's got more experience.
So basically...
So the question is around what's the final delivery?
I've got a question on the line as well. So I'll be putting up that notice today on LMS anyway. What we're expected to deliver is essentially a high-level design, right? So we're not talking about circuit layouts. We're not talking about code. We're talking about system architectures, right? So if you want to specify the odd component here and there, saying I want to use this particular card reader, that's okay, right? But I wouldn't expect you to design circuits. I wouldn't expect you to write code. Does that answer your question? That'd be hard. That'd be hard. If I say this is worth 100%, right? I can give you 130%, but the university is going to cap you at 100. All right.
It goes to I think that's an interesting point, right? So you guys, the gals, the challenge with the project is it's about abstraction. You always want to you always gravitate to what you know. I know how to code, so let me code. I know how to design a board, let me design a board. I know how to do some CAD, let me lay this out in a CAD. That's what you know, but that's kind of design 2, 5552. Okay, that's going all the bits and pieces have been flushed out with these in design 1. Let's look at building something design 2. Okay, design 1 is asking you to abstract a bit and understand that someone's going to have to code this, okay? But lift it up to the kind of functional level of what does the code need to do? So before someone writes that code, you've got to tell them the functions that need to be done. And so that's the abstraction level that we're at, not actually writing the code. So, don't specify that. But don't go into the details of trying to build it. Okay, it is hard because you always fall back on again what you know, and what you know is often how to build something. But take that kind of experience and knowledge and try and abstract it to that next level up. Think of yourselves as managers of a group of engineers. There's a software engineer, hardware engineer, electrical engineer. They're all underneath you. They're all your underlings. Okay? Your job is not to do their job for them. They've been paid to do their job. Your job is to tell them what to do. So tell them what to do, right? And that's your requirements document is going to tell them exactly what needs to be done. Right.
Just a quick one. So there's a point on the concept that Linus talks about using existing UWA student start cards.
Yep.
To confirm, this doesn't necessarily mean you have to use the RFID tag inside it. If we come up with any other way to determine the user.
Yeah, if you could determine the user by the length and width and thickness of the card, then yep, you do that. I don't care. I use my card a lot, and maybe the way it's worn gives me, certain information as well. But anything that is a reasonable way to use that card to extract information. But hang on, let me have a look at my last version of my card. Oh no, it's still there. Look at that. Okay. I know that on a previous version of my card, my barcode was almost non-existent. So I don't know if anyone else has anyone got a barcode on their card that's just been wiped out. I just found it rubbed constantly in my pocket and got scratched and stuff.
They used to have magnetic strips as well.
And they used to have magnetic strips, did they? Your barcode's very nice. Mine's okay, but my previous card, I think this is the second rendition of my card, I think my previous card got so old and ratty, had to be replaced because couldn't use any of that. But yeah, and I think the modern cards all have this, have you got a chip on your card? Have you got a little gold?
No, that's only on these ones. Yeah, they've got the gold chip there. These are just plain.
Yeah.
This has it just inside.
It's
Yeah.
inside them.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, right, what time are we at? Any more questions? 9 minutes to go. Tick tock, tick tock. So again, I really encourage you. I think that first week I was happy to try and answer technical queries, appreciating that this is all new for everyone, but please have a think about those queries, number them clearly, give me the background information. The more information you give me, the more I can nail my answer. Otherwise my answer's like, whoa, I didn't really understand the question, can't help it much. So the art of engineering questions is forming good questions, and you'll get the right answer, or the best answer we can.